to your colleague. Be a little better day to day. So it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. Our speaker this morning is Dr. Altheia Richardson. The President's Task Force on Diversity and Inclusivity a couple of years ago made a recommendation that the institution hire a Chief Diversity Officer, which has become our VP for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity and Belonging. We had a great search committee, great candidate field, and Altheia just rose to the top. And I've had the pleasure of getting to know her over the past maybe 3 or 4 months now. How long has it been?
Almost 3.
Almost 3 months. And I know a little bit about what she's going to talk about, which is really, really exciting things that she's going to be leading. So welcome. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Speaker sounds really, really intimidating, and that is not what you're going to get this morning, because who needs that at 9 o'clock in the morning? I know I don't, but I am so glad to be here. I did not know that we were going to have folks online. Is anyone attending online? Okay, good, because I was going to put them in a small
recording for someone who's absent.
Excellent, excellent. As was mentioned, my name is Altheia Richardson. I have been here for all of 2.5 months, almost 3. But I came from Clemson University, where I spent 31 years there before I left to take this position. The majority of my time at Clemson was spent in some aspect of diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, even before we had those words to use. I had over 20 years in student affairs, but the last 6 years at Clemson, I have been doing institutional level strategic planning, working with the colleges, working with the divisions, working with faculty senate, staff senate on developing, implementing, assessing, reporting out on strategic plans focused on DE&I. And that was the work that I was engaged in before I left there. I did my undergraduate work at the University of South Carolina, right down the road, and then started working at Clemson not long after I graduated from there, and went on to get my MBA and my PhD from Clemson while I was working. I live in Greenville, from Anderson, South Carolina, but I live in Greenville now with my husband Taji and my 2 daughters. My oldest daughter Zari is a senior at the University of South Carolina, so I have a college student right now, and my youngest daughter is in the 11th grade. At Powdersville High School, and she is in the marching band. She's been in marching band for 5 years. So if there's any band parents, I know about that life. Whether you're a former or current band parent, that life is different. So we can commiserate, compare notes about that at any point that you might want to. But I've been here almost 3 months. And in that time, I've met a lot of people. My goal is actually, I don't know if I even want to say this out loud, but to have an opportunity to interact with every single faculty member here one-on-one in this next year. I think I can do it. I've already interacted with several in this room already, but looking forward to that opportunity to connect with everyone and hear about your experiences here at Newberry and how we can partner in this work, because I feel like if I'm going to add value to Newberry, it is going to be about building capacity for this work across the institution, because in order for this to really work, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging has to become everybody's responsibility and not just the person in this role, because I'm one person. But I want to make sure that I can maybe work myself out of a job in 5 or 6 years, because we're doing this work across the institution. I'd love to still have a job, but I'd love for Newberry to not need me or anyone in this role. Also want to make sure that we're not setting it up so that if I do leave in a year or 2, we're not back at square one here at Newberry, because I was trying to do everything instead of building capacity. So that's where I see that I can do the most work for Newberry, and I'm excited about partnering with all of you in that. But one of the things I want to make sure that we're clear on, this work didn't start when I got here at Newberry. It was happening long before I got here, and it was happening with some of the individuals and groups on this slide. Many of you are involved in different initiatives here. Shameless plug for Dufferin Diversity Week. Dr. Wilder, I hope that you have already prepped the group. If not, that's your springboard to make sure you have an opportunity to do that before y'all end in service, because we definitely want to make sure that our faculty are out there and engaged with the activities of that very important institutional program, Dufferin Diversity Week. Our former Director of Diversity Education, Dr. Winder here, was doing a lot of similar work before I got here. The Muller Center, Dr. Hughes, continues this work. And so I won't mention them all. I have been told that Social and Behavioral Sciences Department, though, really embodies this work and lives it out in the work that they do in a really special way. So I'm really excited about learning more about that and how we can be good partners, but lots of different things already going on here at Newberry, and great work that I can just kind of take and build on. Another couple of groups that I want to highlight, and Sid mentioned the first one, the President's Task Force on Diversity and Inclusion. My understanding is that this group was put together in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. And I believe there was a student organization called the Social Justice Club that they and others were leading an effort for the institution to make some type of statement, but not just a statement, but a call to action and a commitment to this work. And as a result of that activism, this task force was put together. They did a campus climate survey, they did focus groups, and they took all that information and other data points and came up with some recommendations to the administration. They also developed and drafted a strategic plan focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there were two objectives where specifically I am centered in, and that was one, to establish an office with staff and funding that focused on this work, and to create a vice presidential level position to lead that office. I'll say the second bullet point, we can check, I'm here. The first one, there's still more work to be done in terms of actually building an office and making sure we are appropriately staffed to build the capacity across the institution, but we're working on that. Another group that I want to highlight is a group that the name eventually became the Campus Climate Task Force, but the name can be a little deceiving in terms of the work of the group, because it really was focused on gender issues around our faculty, and in particular, some concerning turnover in our women faculty. And this group was put together, and they came up with some recommendations to the administration. My understanding is there's been a couple of subsequent meetings with our president and others to kind of get a pulse and a gauge on if there's been some improvements on some things. So we also have the work of that group that was working on behalf of the institution. And then there was a DEIB advisory board that was put together shortly before I got here, and I've made some small tweaks to it, but pretty much the group that was put together. And I'll be meeting with that group for the first time as a collective group in about a month. And what we'll be doing is going through the draft strategic plan and trying to prioritize some of those 60-something objectives on that strategic plan, and figuring out, okay, what do we need to focus on first? We may not be able to do all of those things at one time, but what do we want to prioritize at the institution? And many of the folks in the room who were on one or both of these task forces are on that DEIB advisory board. So we'll be able to continue to utilize that wisdom and that energy and feedback in the group. But feedback is what I'm hoping that I can use this hour that I have with all of you to get to help our DEIB advisory board figure out what to prioritize. And this is just so exciting for me to have all of you in one space to pick your brains one moment. Because there were 5 key priorities on that strategic plan that was drafted. And there are these 5 that are up here. And so I will, after today, will be able to go into that DEIB advisory board and say, this is the collective thinking of our faculty on some things that we need to be doing as an institution to prioritize this work. So that is extremely valuable for me to be able to share with that board. So what we're going to do for the next few minutes, most of your tables, if not all, and I don't think this table has one because I don't know if all of you are at the table, but there's one of these 5 key priorities is there. So you don't have all 5, you just have one of those key priorities. Hold on, don't get it done. I got it. I'll pick up my notes. There's a method to my madness. So, and then there's 2 questions. The first question is, what should Newberry start doing, do differently or better, or stop doing to more effectively advance this key priority? Question number 1. Question number 2, how can faculty in particular play a more active role in advancing this key priority? Make sure. So every table, and if you're at, do y'all not have one? I gotcha. I'm coming right over both of those tables.